Good morning. I'm so glad to see so many people here. We've been working really hard to pull this together, a lot of people, and it's great to see that a lot of you can come and take advantage of it. I'm just going to take a few minutes because a number of years ago, I was a city planner and had a REACH code project land on my desk when I didn't have any background or know anything about REACH codes. So for any of you who might be in a similar boat, I wanted to do a quick overview, introduction of some of the terms, some of the concepts that maybe took me a little while to figure out and maybe help people move along. So what are we talking about today? The state of California has a Building Standards Code, Title 24, which has 12 parts, each one focusing on one topic like electrical or plumbing, and Part 6 is the California Energy Code. So when we talk about REACH codes, we're talking about something that is above that reaches beyond the minimum requirements of the California State Building Code. Local jurisdictions have the authority under state law to amend the building code and make it more stringent if they can make certain findings. But not all energy-related codes are REACH codes, and not everything in a green building ordinance is this type of REACH code. The ones we're talking about focusing on today are ones that are amendments to the California Building Standards Code and that require increased energy efficiency. And that distinction is important because it has there are certain legal requirements for adoption that relate to those. Certain other codes might not require amendment of the building code and might not require increased energy efficiency. So things like a code that requires electric vehicle charging infrastructure, that's a different type from a code that requires increased energy efficiency in buildings. And there are legal ramifications for that. So why adopt an energy REACH code? There are a lot of numbers, a lot of different versions of the numbers, but rather than going into that, I think the bottom line is that buildings use a lot of energy and they produce a lot of greenhouse gases. The state is tightening up their code every 3 years, but local governments can do more. As I mentioned, they can have the authority to be more stringent than the state energy code. A lot of times climate action plans will call for a jurisdiction to adopt a REACH code, and that's a good tool for local governments. When we're talking about buildings, there's new buildings and there's existing buildings, and they're both important. New buildings will be around for a long time. My house was built in 1949, so it's its 70th birthday today, and we still have the original furnace, which I'm probably should be embarrassed to say, but it's still working. But if you build a new house, right, it's easier than retrofitting it. Like, I'm going to have to replace that furnace at some point, right? So existing buildings make up most of California's building stock. Many of them are not energy efficient. So the case we're going to make today, we're going to be focusing on new buildings. And I'd like to make the argument that while both of them are important to address, it's essential to start with new buildings so that we don't add more buildings to the existing building stocks that will then need to be retrofitted. So who is involved in developing and adopting a REACH code? It's really all about local governments. Local governments are the ones who adopt them. The elected officials at their city council meetings have public hearings just like any other ordinance. And staff, local government staff from a number of departments are usually involved, from the city manager's office, sustainability, building department, public works, community development. And like any public process, it's not limited to people within the city. There are those public hearings, and various stakeholders outside of the city will get involved and have things to say, such as developers, architects, environmental organizations, and you can probably think of more people for your jurisdictions. There's also a couple of state agencies that are important to keep in mind. The California Energy Commission reviews and approves REACH codes that require additional energy efficiency, and the Building Standards Commission receives all amendments to the building code. So when should REACH codes be adopted? This is a little complicated because the REACH codes are tied to the state building code cycle. The state updates the building code every 3 years. 2019 is where we're at now. REACH codes are amendments to the state building code, and they're only valid for the time of the underlying code, so for a maximum of 3 years. This building code, the 2019 building code, will be in effect starting January 1st of next year, 2020, through the end of 2022. However, it takes a little longer for a local REACH code to go from adoption to when it takes effect, because it has to go through the additional step of Mainly it's the CEC review and approval. So if you wanted to make your commercial development super efficient, but you're not expecting to see any new commercial development in the next 3 years, it's not really going to have much effect in the end. So usually planning and building have a pretty good sense of what might be coming down the pike, and that's good to keep in mind as well. The other thing to be aware of when looking at options is that there is a cost effectiveness requirement. So state law mandates that any ordinance that increases energy efficiency has to be cost effective. Usually this is demonstrated with a study, usually that examines the cost of the measure, compares it to the savings from implementing the measure. And as you can imagine, depending on how much of the state you're talking about, depending on how many measures you're looking at and what exactly they are, these can be really complicated or they can be fairly simple. And regardless of which type they are, they involve a lot of assumptions, a lot of modeling. Some of those assumptions are defined by the state, some of them are not. So later today, we're going to hear about the initial results from 2 fairly complicated cost effectiveness studies, and I know that are related to the 2019 building code. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. The one last thing I wanted to mention on cost effectiveness is that they are related to the climate zone. So when a measure needs to be found to be cost effective in a particular climate zone, and these are climate zones that have been defined by the California Energy Commission. There's a lovely map on their website that I've copied here, and I've added a table so that you can see which climate zones are relevant for the 9 counties in the Bay Area. So one of the important things to know here is that once a particular measure or group of measures has been shown to be cost effective in a particular climate zone, any jurisdiction within that climate zone can use that same justification to support a REACH code. So that's a lot of information, and there's going to be a lot more coming. Who can help if you need help going forward? BayREN, we work in the Bay Area, the 9 counties of the Bay Area. We support all types of energy REACH codes. We have events like this, resources. There's our webpage. We have added a REACH code page, or actually a set of pages to the website. We also have the BayREN County representatives who introduced themselves this morning. They're all aware of what's going on throughout the county, and if they don't know, they know who to ask. So those are resources for you, and there's a contact email. We also have our co-sponsor, the statewide investor-owned utility REACH code team. They work throughout the entire state of California, also support all energy REACH codes. They provide cost-effectiveness studies, model ordinances, technical support to facilitate local government adoption of REACH codes, and you can reach them with that email address. Relatively recently, there's a new group, the Zero Emissions Buildings Task Force, which is a group joint effort from the Building Decarbonization Coalition, the NRDC, and the Sierra Club. They're working statewide also on REACH codes with the goal of decarbonizing buildings through networking, technical support, and resources. And Amy Ryder, Amy, are you here? There, so there's Amy. You can catch her if you want more information, and there's her contact information. And a number of our community choice aggregators, Bay Area CCAs, are working to promote REACH codes within their service areas. Mostly, I believe, building electrification and electric vehicle codes. Exactly what they're doing varies little from place to place, and you can contact your local CCA to find out more. Also, later this morning when we have our geographic breakout sessions, you'll hopefully be able to hear from any folks who are here. They can talk to exactly what they're providing within their territory. So if you want more information, our website has a lot. The REACH code website is there, and you can also feel free to contact me.